Live here. In front of you, you have the agenda for tonight, which is for Twin Track Promotions. I can wait for you if you'd like.
You're good.
Okay. Twin Track Promotions, Ackworth Speedway, Gary Palmer and his daughter Melissa. This is here. In front of you, you have the agenda for tonight, which is for Twin Track Promotions. At least I'm loud enough. Twin Track Promotions, Ackworth Speedway, Gary Palmer and his daughter Melissa. This is here. In front of you, you have the agenda for tonight. At least I'm loud. Act live. Okay. In front of you, you have the agenda for the Ackworth Speedway, which is being represented by Gary Palmer and his daughter Melissa. Again, a reminder, this is a site plan approval as determined by our code enforcement officer. The applicant, Mr. Palmer, is requesting 12 commercial events to be added to their already approved site plan. So in front of you, we have a couple of items that I printed out for you, which is our town code. For the members of the public today, just to inform you that this is a workshop meeting between the board members and the applicant. There is no public comment tonight. We will be offering public comment at our regular meeting on February, which will be February. Well, it's just so you're aware.
January.
This is January.
No, next meeting is in January.
No, it's in February.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Keep up with me here. Okay, so that will be February 12th. Okay, first things first. We have agreed to meet with the applicant today to have a question and answer, sort of an understanding on what we're going to do based on the public comment that came in at the last meeting. In addition, we're going to go over town code and have sort of a back and forth. And then after that, we will close the meeting and we will have a meeting between the board and our attorney and planning board consultant, Mr. Church, and Mr. Gordon, who is going to provide about an hour and 15-minute training session on seeker, and that will be for our board meeting. So a couple things since our last meeting, I want to make sure that we're on sort of the right track of understanding. The racetrack and its current approved site plan is not something that's up for discussion in this application. It has been previously approved by the planning board and the town board. And our jurisdiction as the planning board is to address how this application fits on the property. In addition to that, I'd like to go over the code, read code, make sure we understand code, make sure we're checking all the boxes of what we need based on our conversations for commercial events. So here we go. I'm on the single pamphlet back and forth. It's 140-35 commercial events facilities. Findings: the town of Rochester, in an effort to encourage economic development and tourism activities, recognizes the permitted business use such as inns, bed and breakfasts, spas, and similar enterprises may desire to derive income from the occasional use of their facility for events. The purpose: this section of law is to ensure facilities which may not have been designed to service such special events meet the standards of health, safety, and welfare while allowing for such use upon satisfaction of specific standards. The scope is where such facilities are permitted either by right or by permit. Commercial on-site events such as conferences, banquets, festivals, weddings, and other celebratory or educational events shall be permitted as a special use subject to standards of 140-16 and below. The use shall be a separate use considered a multiple use, as defined herein, and shall be required to meet the sum of all development standards for the zoning district. Exemptions: upon review of the zoning permit application by the code enforcement officer, where commercial events use is determined to be regularly occurring and usually associated with such use, approved uses such as agricultural tourism enterprises, hotels and motels, nonprofit clubs, places of worships, public buildings, parks, resorts, restaurants, taverns, and other such use shall be exempt from the requirement of the special use permit and these standards, but in all cases shall be required to meet the additional parking and health and safety requirements. In such cases, the code enforcement officer is empowered by the town board to determine if the requirements have been satisfied and may determine site plan review and approval by the planning board to be required. A non-conforming use shall not be eligible for exemption and shall require a special use permit application. The facility shall submit a plan subject to site plan review standards for the code of such events, which, Mr. Palmer, you have already completed. The number of events shall be limited to maximum 12 events per calendar year. Each day of activities open to persons other than lodging guests, counting as a separate event. The facility operator shall be required to notify the code enforcement office of any such event scheduled a minimum of 3 business days prior to the event by either email or in written letter. Event hours shall be limited to between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. with setup and dismantling hours shall be limited to 8 a.m. to midnight. The designated portions of the property to be used for such events, including but not limited to temporary parking areas, temporary structures, sanitation facilities, shall be clearly identified on the site plan and meet applicable yard requirements, which yours means. I, all parking for events shall be off-street and may consist of temporary parking within required yards or by agreement on other properties. It's been provided. All temporary structures and equipment must be removed within 4 days after each event and shall remain in place a maximum of 7 days altogether, except by code enforcement officer approval when the next event is scheduled within 7 days of the preceding event. Applicants shall document compliance with the Ulster County Board of Health and other applicable health and safety regulations, which you already know. Going to 140-20, general commercial and industrial standards. This is related, and I won't read this, this is a long one, but this is in relative to what the buildings that you need, bathrooms, parking, if there's loading docks or sidewalks, anything that is on a commercial design standard, which would be on 209, would be public facing, residential buffers, inflammables or electrical disturbances. And then we're going to go to noise, which is letter F. That's where we're going to start. So I'm on page 2 of 140-20. Letter F, noise. All proposed new land uses shall not generate cumulative sound levels, SPL, at or beyond any lot line that exceeds the ambient noise level by 10 or more decibels. Any sound of 5 to 10 decibels above the ambient noise level shall be attenuated or mitigated to the maximum degree practical, as shall be determined by the planning board during site plan review. The planning board may, as a condition of site plan review and approval, require additional setbacks, buffers, and fencing, or reasonably limit the hours of operation to attenuate or mitigate any potential noise impacts or proposed use. 2, the determination of noise level shall be made by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation guidelines as amended. The increase in ambient noise level shall be determined for all lot lines at the site where the project is to take place and other locations as shall be specified by the planning board, taking into account existing noise generators. 3, the maximum permissible sound levels of this section shall not apply to emergency or security alarms, repair or construction work to provide public utilities, construction operations between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., emergency repairs, agriculture activities other than kennels, motor vehicles when used on public streets in accord with state regulations, aircraft, government authorized public celebrations, unamplified human voices, or routine ringing of bells or chimes by a place of worship or similar facility. G, vibration. No vibration shall be permitted on a regular or continuing basis, which is detectable without instruments at the property lines. H, lighting. Lighting for all commercial, multifamily, residential, institutional, and industrial uses shall be shielded and focused downward to prevent glare and spillover light onto adjoining properties. All lighting shall be designed so as to avoid unnecessary or unsafe spillover of light and glare onto operators of motor vehicles, pedestrians, and land uses in proximity to light sources. No direct or sky reflective glare, whether from floodlights or from high temperature processes such as combustion or welding, or other sources so as to be visible at the property line or on a regular continuing basis shall be permitted. Lighting contours shall be required on site plan for purposes of determining compliance with the section. Average foot candles to the property line shall be less than 1.0 except at site entrances. Globe lights shall be ordinarily not permitted except for limited aesthetics and sidewalk lighting as part of a site plan subject to the review by the planning board. Light pole height shall not exceed building height and shall not exceed 25 feet in height. All lighting over 2,000 lumens in strength shall meet the full cutoff standards of the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. All site activity areas, including parking lots and walkways, shall meet minimum IESNA standards and exceed those standards by no more than 25%. All gasoline canopy lighting shall be fully recessed, and the average light level under the vehicular canopy shall not exceed 20 horizontal, maintained 15 meters. This goes on to air pollution, water pollution for that code. So that is the zoning code and the town code that we are looking into this application. So with this, I'd like to go back to 140-20 where it says noise on number 1. I'm on page number 2, 140-20, letter F, noise number 1. All proposed new land uses, Mr. Palmer, you are proposing a new land use, shall not generate cumulative sound levels at or above any lot line that exceeds the ambient noise level by 10 or more decibels. Any sound of 5 to 10 decibels above the ambient noise level shall be attenuated or mitigated to the maximum degree practical as shall determined by the planning board of site plan. The planning board may, as a condition, require additional setbacks. Okay, so we have heard from the public about trash on the road. We've heard about traffic on the road. We've heard about noise and dust. We've heard about concerns with safety with people walking and riding the bike on the road during race days. It is of the planning board's responsibility to make sure that we are focused on what Mr. Palmer is trying to do here. That's not about racing. So anything that is concerned with what would happen on a typical Friday night is not something that we're discussing. We are focused on what you're going to be doing, what you're looking to do, and what that is going to bring to the town. So you have mentioned to us briefly about barbecues, car shows, rodeos, concerts. Can you briefly, can you identify how many people you would expect at such event? Identify maybe you expect those things to be a all-day event from the allotted time. What can you provide us for some
Well,
more?
rodeo, I got a price from a guy last year. It was gonna be 25,000 to come and bring his stuff to me, put his show on, and I would pay him. It's like a 4-hour show.
Okay.
And the only noise that would bring would when they announce, you know, like the bull riders or what. I don't know too much about the sound levels of a rodeo. I've never been.
Of course.
But I've mentioned it to a few people and they thought, wow, what a cool thing around here with all the farms and stuff, you know, people might like it.
How about car shows and barbecues? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, the car show would be just a static show where you put cars in the, say we put them on the track or we put them in the pits, just line them up. Parked cars, not moving
So
vehicles.
parked cars with people parking and walking around. Okay.
Yeah, they park in the parking
The
lot.
same thing with the barbecue. They would
Yeah.
park and.
I thought of do a barbecue competition. I thought that would be kind of cool to smoke, you know, where these guys are all into smokers. You know, that gets a lot of interest throughout the whole country. I thought that would be kind of cool to do. I wanted to do a strawberry social in my little town every year. That was a big event. And it was put on by my church, but I thought it would be kind of a cool thing. You got Saunderskill over there with the nice fresh strawberries and might be some kind of an event you can incorporate it with something else. I don't know. You know, I'm not like these concerts, whatever these people think that I'm not bringing in, I can't afford to bring in these big people, you know, with trailers and these big things, whatever when they come and put a
So
show
what would you
on.
propose? If
I
you
wanna
can't do that,
do-
what would you propose?
Little local guys that are, you know, WRWD is a sponsor at the track, and Uncle Mike is a personal friend of mine, and he knows a lot of new talent that is looking to get notified. I mean,
So you would, in that situation, you'd set up a stage like on the infield and use
Yeah.
the stands like you
yeah,
do on a
because the
normal.
grandstands is and you know, it's not the monster rap stuff like this.
And Gary, how many people can you seat there?
Well, I would say, you know, 1,500 people.
And how many people, how many cars could you think you could park?
Oh, you could put a ton of cars. I mean, I would say 2,000 cars.
That's what you think would fit there in the park?
Yeah, you had the right people parking on,
Yeah, of course.
not our regular Friday night.
Sure.
Is that verifiable, that number, 2,000 cars you can put on the parking spot there?
Say it again?
Is that verifiable? 2,000 cars can easily,
He's saying he could fit 2,000
all right,
cars.
where's the proof?
I'm just asking for, that's what I'm asking for. How many does he think he can see?
You could measure it, you know, cars a certain amount of width.
Well, we need to provide this information. I don't have to measure. Just have to provide that you have a open space for parking and so many cars can fit like everybody else does.
Okay, so I'd like to just go around, I know that we've heard a lot from the public, obviously, and we want to make sure that we are working with those items. Additionally, this was determined by the code enforcement officer as a principal permitted use in our town. So this is allowed in the town and in your zoning designation. That's why you're in front of us today. If it was not something that was permitted, you wouldn't even be in front of us. So this is something that the town board has created a code and allows this type of use in your zoning designations. That's number one. So I'll go around. Rick, do you want to start? I know you have some questions and sort of we can have some feedback.
Some questions for Gary.
Sure.
And then just, I think, what this board needs to come to at the end of the workshop on this project is, and remember, this is not a special use.
Correct.
This is a
Site plan
That's how the building inspector categorized it.
designated.
So we're just here to establish the things that are necessary in the site plan while they present. So we already know that you have, for site plan purposes, you have the adequate toilet facilities, water facilities, all that water health approved. That's already there. And we actually, one member of the board actually went out there and the building inspector determined that you do. We know you do because you've had racing events.
I have
So I
to do
think-
that every year with the Board of Health.
Right. So I think what we want to do tonight is to talk about the noise. What kind of standards are we going to set on noise? How are we going to get that accomplished? And what's the quote unquote maximum number of people who would be at the event? If you know the maximum number of people, what we generally do here is then say, and that equals X number of cars. We make the assumption that one car represents
2.5.
2.5 or 2.3 people. Now, there's no such thing as a half a person. That's the calculation.
Is it
So
two
if
and
we
a half?
did 2.5 per car and have 1,500 people, it seems like on the high side, to be honest with you. And if there's a different number that we can come to an agreement on here to say, for purposes of this site plan at this time, here's the number of people, which equals X number of cars. And that's what we would work with. Now, who's gonna check that? Planning board's not gonna check. It's up to the building inspector and or you guys to keep it within those numbers. So that.
Well, I think there's just one little problem with
Go
that.
ahead.
What if you have an event and it, you know, I want to build this place up so I can leave it to my kids. I would like them to be able to have a place to continue doing business, not just close it down. Because we're not doing, because racing is not, it's dying. It's not like it used to be. Half the people have an interest in doing it now. So the revenues that are brought in by it, it's not worth doing half the time. So, I want to be able to leave this to my kids that they don't have to, it's once I die, then that means the place closes up and it's done. I don't want that.
So I think what in this situation is what we would do as a planning board is based on the information you provide, we would say, you know, you're allowed to have X amount of events, and at each one of those events, you're capped to how many people or how many
Yeah,
tickets you
I
can sell.
get that. I
something
mean,
like that.
the only thing is, I mean, what if you have 1,100, what do you tell, 100 people get out, go home?
No, if you say the cap is 1,000, that's the most you would want there, that you would be able to handle with the people you have working there, then yeah, you would be capped to 1,000. Is anybody gonna be out there checking it from the town?
Well, I don't want to be worrying that these people are around with a clicker on me.
Well, we're not gonna do that.
Well, I don't
You
know.
may do that.
I've had a lot of people poking around my property lately.
It would be an amount of how many tickets would be able to be sold for that event. So like if you had a concert, most of the time you're going to pre-sell
And
tickets.
there'll probably be 500 people. And who knows, maybe
Sure.
we won't even have a concert, you know what I mean?
You can get
Something- I've been trying to
Of
get
course.
Uncle Mike to do this for years.
Keep in mind that as the planning board, it's our responsibility to cover all commercial events. So You could have a wedding there that would bring 50 people, and you could have a concert there that would bring 1,500. Our goal is to make sure that we have all of those. Well, no, our goal is to make sure that we have the minimum covered and the maximum covered in the event that you have a sellout.
Yeah.
For instance, you might have somebody who wants to come and put on a show here. Well, we would cap you at how many tickets you could sell.
So we gotta come up with some kind of a number to put into the finding.
Yep. Threshold.
I'm not gonna set it, you need to come up with a number that's generally based upon, well, how many cars?
Well,
can
the
you
cars,
put?
that would be a key.
Right.
See, now, I was thinking the other day, on a typical race night, you would have your people in attendance who are general parking, who are most of the time going to sit in your grandstands. You'd have your people who are in the pits, who are generally going to use the pit stands. And then you'd have some of the people from the pits sometimes go out to the grandstand. That's fine. You have some people who just come and park in the driveway and watch. And then you have the racers. So you have, in the event of I'm thinking on a worst case scenario, in the event that you have 1,500 people, you might be parking cars in the pits and the general parking because you're only using the stands, right?
Yeah.
You would be using the pit grandstands just as you use your regular grandstand. So we would take that under consideration as well, because in the event of I'm going to call it general parking, your pit parking could handle another 200 cars. You probably get 150 on a regular night.
You'd probably be right that I said for cars.
Right. So these are things that we're going to be, identifying in our findings as to how many people can you actually hold, can you manage, can you feed, can your Board of Health be approved for? That's our goal. So the questions that are back and forth is more of, we don't know your establishment, you do. So you sort of have to tell us what you can hold, how much can't you hold? Our goal is, as the commercial events law requires, it's your responsibility to park cars on your parking grounds, not on the road, not on the side of the road, not up the road. Now, if you have an agreement with a neighbor who says, sure, you can use my lot, that's between you and your neighbor. But it's the town's responsibility that no parking traffic can be on Whitfield Road. So we're working on that together.
So
I
the
mean,
only
to
other
give us,
thing,
sorry, to give us a general idea of how many cars would be there for any sort of commercial event, do you have a number of how many cars fit in the pits and in the general parking on a Friday night, a full race night?
Well, the problem is some of the trailers are 30 foot
So-
long,
right,
so
so
that's
these
That would be 3 cars, right?
Two cars.
Right, well, say we take into consideration the truck and the trailer as a vehicle each.
Yeah, truck's 21, 22 feet, a regular pickup. And then a trailer, say the average
Is
modified
the same.
trailer is 30 foot.
Right, so let's say that's just 2 vehicles in your pit
Yeah.
parking.
And
Does
we
that'll
get-
suffice? And
We
then
get
in the
over
general-
100 cars in the pits.
So that would be 200. You'll get 100 truck and trailers.
Yeah.
That would be 200 parking.
And that's leaving all the roads, being able to, you could
And you have multiple means of egress too. You have the pit,
out the back way
so
and
they can come in one way, go out.
Gary, do you have a limit that the Board of Health set in terms of ability to handle sanitary needs and water needs? Was there a number?
no, but we've
Is there a
never
realistic
really
number?
exceeded. Like I said, the racing is dying. It's not like it used to be, like you had people climbing on top of each other. There's 2 or 3 seats in between people now in the grandstands. Like I said, that's why I'm looking to try to come up with some other ways to make some kind of revenue out of this property,
So we need a number.
Yep.
And you have a couple of suggestions here.
So
Then
keep
with
going, Rick. You got noise, you got
so
parking.
noise, forget about the noise from the speedway, that's already been established. So, but if you were to, the law says that you can't have more than 10 decibels above the ambient noise in the,
what is
In that
that?
area.
Like say if I had a
So-
car show, I had a guy with an announcer.
we're not gonna go back to the car show. What I'm thinking of is,
Let me just
On the
identify,
day-
Rick,
on
let me
the
let me
day.
identify what ambient is.
Sure.
So in a special event, commercial event, it would be your responsibility to identify what ambient noise is. Okay? You have there's they make apps for that. You guys hire on a yearly basis. Which we've seen the reports that you guys come out and they do a noise test. And you submit that on a yearly basis per your site. That's something you've already done.
That's done every
Right.
year.
In this situation, the planning board has the purview to identify for you that we would require what that noise level is. So on a typical Saturday afternoon, a typical Tuesday, whatever you're identifying of your event, it would be your jurisdiction to provide to the code enforcement officer, similar to you,
Louder than normal.
that only 10 decibels louder than what that ambient noise is.
They
Now,
don't want us to-
Explain, ambient, first measure when no one's there, because it seems that doesn't understand.
So that's where I'm going with this.
Right, go ahead.
So in the morning of an event, I don't know, you have a chicken cooking festival, whatever. In the morning, your people, Mark mentioned their apps, you've established the ambient noise for that day, like taking a reading when nobody's there except for the workers. And not doing anything, nobody's making any noise other than talking to each other. During the course of the event, you establish you're gonna read it every hour or every 2 hours. Again, there are apps that go into this thing.
On the board, it's over.
And you're gonna do that and you submit that. If it's a 4-hour event, you take 1 reading in the morning and 2 readings during the day, or 3 readings during the day, up with a reasonable number. And then it can't be any more than 10 decibels above what you did in the morning. And that has to be delivered to building inspector every time you have an event.
Do the other venues do that?
they do.
They
They
do.
do.
Rick, I'm sorry. In the past, for example, Arrow, they conducted ambient study once and was reported in the permit.
It was what?
Recorded in permit.
Yep.
What was the ambient study? And this is basically baseline against the operate. Obviously, it has to be checked, but they don't have to do ambient right before every event. They have to do ambient like a
All right, well,
during a
make it
regu-
easier for
during a regular day. Nothing happened, measure ambient. This is my regular ambient, 40. And it's on records.
You can do it once.
That's because that ambient is people around.
So Helena, I'd like you to touch on.
Typically for the measurement of ambient, you would take readings, you would have AM, PM readings over the course of a couple of days, and who's ever, it's more detailed than just using an app. I mean, I think you can do that if you are, once the event is in progress, and then you'll know immediately what that is. But typically you'll measure the ambient, and whatever noise engineer that you use, he will have his data sheets, he will have his microphone, et cetera. The guideline of DEC guideline of assessing and mitigating noise impacts sets forth how you should be measuring the ambient, et cetera. AM, PM, what should be included in those data sheets, because if there's a barking dog, that's going to skew your data. If there's a haul truck going by,
Or a truck going up the street
Yep.
with no exhaust.
yeah, whatever, but you will take several readings and establish that ambient, and then then you could submit that to the board to review, our engineer or Dave Church, then we can all settle on what is an accurate.
You're
Ambient.
doing it now.
You set it before you don't measure the ambient every time.
Dave Church doesn't
And-
get involved.
And in addition to that, this board already waived the need for
Okay,
noise.
but I'm just saying, just to make sure that the ambient, the data was collected in
Sure.
accordance with the DEC guidelines.
Right, so-
That's all.
Agreed. So in this situation, because we waived the noise study
Mhm.
requirement at the beginning of the application, when we presented the application, I think it's best that you would do an ambient noise study at the time of your commercial event, as Rick and I mentioned.
Every day, every time.
He's only having 12.
Events.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm not even probably gonna do.
Well, I'm just, well, hang on, we're working on the total. So if he does it on the day of the event, judges what ambient is as a typical day, whether it's a Tuesday, a Monday, a Friday, whatever it is, then it's his requirement that he can only go up to
Agreed.
10.
I
So
understood.
rather than where other applications have been judging ambient today and then using that as what the ambient threshold is, and then it can only go up 10. The reason why I don't think that's a good idea is because there could be new buildings in the area next year. He could have new neighbors being put in of houses. That would skew that ambient noise potentially with more traffic, more dump trucks, less dump trucks, whatever could potentially change that. So in my opinion, ambient should be judged every day, every time he's having an event.
So just.
There's no wrong way, I don't think.
Just to set the record straight, because I was around for all of these, setting up noise levels for all of these. When we did Crested Hen, the applicant did the study. And the applicant was way above the 10. And the way they got around that was they actually insulated the inside of the barn. Because that's
Where the wedding venues are gonna
and,
be.
you know, they were limited to where they could have their event. So they did that. When it was done, I don't remember who did it for Arrow, but whether he had an engineer come in.
Yeah.
He had an engineer come in and set the ambient, but only once. And when he did that, if you remember, he had weed whackers going. He had everything.
Going back.
It was kind of ridiculous. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, we
You're
got to redo
boosting
it.
the
It's
ambient
doing-
level
Sure.
so that you don't have to worry about the noise you eventually get. So it's like, yeah,
But
so
we
that.
sent,
So we made it go back and redo it. Here, so if you do that, I want to take out any of the what's and around that may go on in terms of doing the study. Let Gary or people do it. You've done it before. You're doing it now.
Well, what I'm
Do
thinking,
it in the morning and then do it a couple of times during the actual.
And then you would be required to provide that data. You currently you have 3 days prior to the event to notify that you're gonna have it. We would probably put in our decision, you know, a time frame 3 to 7 days, whatever it is, after the event or prior to your next event. Because we're not gonna give you the approval to do number 4 if you haven't submitted data for 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so just keep that's something that we would have to discuss as a board, but I would assume that the board would want the previous data before the next
Oh, yeah.
data. Okay,
We just need to remind ourselves, for better or for worse, we don't review the data. That's the building.
that's the building inspector.
That's
Code
just the way
enforcement.
it works.
Okay, so Rick, you talked about noise, you
So,
talked
you know,
about parking
Those are the
cars.
things that I'm concerned with. I know that you have ambulances or emergency services on site that you pay for yourself. I know that you have people directing the traffic, multiple people directing the traffic.
can I say something?
Yeah.
The first, monster truck show was a disaster. And I
Monster car
will
show?
agree with that on the streets. I didn't know what it was gonna be. Those people just leased the property for me. And I let them handle it. Well, the next time when we did it, we had parking all straightened out. I mean, there was 2 officers all day long out there going up and down the street, so people weren't blocked to get in their driveways. You know, they were saying they couldn't get into their houses and stuff. I wouldn't want that. I mean, I'm a homeowner myself. What if my wife had to get to the hospital? I couldn't get out. I understand all this stuff. And, like I said, the last time we did that second monster truck show, it was much more professionally
So
handled.
the first one was botched out,
Well,
the second one was.
And I didn't know about it. This one that I want to do now is going to be run by me and 2 guys from Monster Jam.
And Gary, just in addition to that, is in the event that you happen to lease your track out again, you do something similar to that, these requirements would be your responsibility. You get that. So any time that we put a site plan decision on a said property, it's for the owner's responsibility. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Whether you're the owner, Melissa's the owner, the next owner, it's their responsibility to manage that. Okay, so Rick,
That's all.
you covered a lot. Zorian?
I see some consistency with what we're doing. If we decided no noise study, why are saying now, do noise studies before the event? 1. Second, if you do both studies, let's be consistent with what we did in the past. Second, you cannot rely on the applicant to do measurements because it's always going to be argumental. By doing ambient noise time and recording them, then it's on the record. So next event, somebody goes there and measure what's going on, then you can see the difference. Because otherwise, every event gonna be argumental. Today, the prep group came and they do some noise. We started measuring ambient. It's louder than what's another event. You cannot set up this kind of very baseline. I don't agree with it.
Paulina?
Where I have a slight issue is in the collection of the ambient data. Because it typically, the morning readings of ambient is very quiet. There's less cars on the roads, et cetera, et cetera. So if we are going as a board to request ambient, I think we need to do that and maybe give him a window of 3 days. And he needs to have AM and PM readings, because if he has an event, if you know that morning readings are typically 10 dBs less, let's say. And his event starts at 9 AM and goes to 6 PM. He is not really getting an accurate ambient for afternoon noise in the community.
Absolutely.
So that's my only, that's what I'm having a little.
So you would agree that, if we could dictate what these days would be, but I'm using this hypothetically, a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Saturday at 9 AM and 4 PM.
3 to 4, yeah, 9 to 10, 3 to 4, something like that, maybe 3 days before the event, so that you establish a current ambient, because I understand what you say about as far as future construction, future uses, et cetera, but you really want to capture the ambient of the community for the time that the event is going.
Sure.
And so if we only rely on an ambient at 8 o'clock in the morning, he will be, but the regular ambient PM readings may be 10 dBs higher than the orange. So that's my only caution for asking for or putting in the permit same day.
Great. Anne Marie?
Well, as far as noise is concerned, I mean, they've had this business here for a long time. I can't see the noise of a daytime event being louder than a Friday night event, so I'm not worried about it.
Great. Zach?
I'll second to what Anne Marie said about the noise. The only thing that I was wondering is, for an event that is suggested to hold a great amount of people, would it be beneficial to arrange with the town constable to sit and direct traffic on Whitfield
That's
Road?
what we
in that
did.
area?
That's, we did that with the monster trucks.
Okay,
And then a company that needs to be.
okay, so.
So just to answer the parking, the planning board don't have the jurisdiction to require you to get parking or traffic monitors on a town road. It's town board's discussion. That's something that what we can only monitor or mandate is that you have people on site parking cars so that the traffic comes off of Whitfield Road smoothly, and we don't want cars parked on there like, where they were backed up. We would want you to get the cars off and then park them, on your site so that they're not backing up. So that would be something that we would manage. But if you wanted to have, the sheriff's office or the constables or state police, whatever if you felt that necessary, that'd be something you would have to manage.
Well, I don't wanna have any problem. I get along pretty good with my neighbors as a rule. I don't know good ones. Some of them hate us. I
That's
don't know why. They don't even know me. But, I want the neighbors to feel good, and I don't wanna upset them, so I want them to be able to get in their driveways and.
I don't want to be stuck on the road trying to get up there either, so.
So we've heard yes,
Another
absolutely.
comment that I failed to put in. The other thing that I would do, what I'd suggest is encourage you for advanced ticket sales, because then you're going to know, you'll have an idea how many people are coming, 600 or 1,000, what have you.
Or
And if you're-
50.
Or 50, and that will also help you prepare for your food and beverage, parking, staffing for the event, et cetera, right? I mean, to me, it makes
Well,
sense. I mean, you
this is
still
one-
have to have same day tickets available, but if you have
I know, you have a better understanding.
a better
of what-
understanding of
I
what
get it, I
you're,
got it, but
just from a business point of view, and also helping manage the impacts of, if there's 50 people, do we need to have the constable?
Sure.
If
Right.
there's 1,000 people,
We should
then we could have or the sheriffs or what have you. So
and I'm
if-
fine with that. The only
just
thing
a
is with the
suggestion.
advanced ticket sales,
Mm.
we get so much rain. I think we raced 5 times last year,
Understood.
Right, 'cause you're an outdoors event.
It's an outdoor event, it's.
But sometimes you might, and I'm gonna use the concert again, just thinking in the back of my mind, you would have potential events that are rain or shine. You'd have a rain date that was identified ahead of time. So if there's gonna be, a concert potentially, you would say, we're gonna have it on Tuesday with a rain date on Friday, whatever that may be. So that advanced ticket sales, that might work in that situation, because no matter what, you're gonna have rain or shine or a rain date. So that's a good suggestion in the event that you have a rain date, or no matter what, it's rain or shine, we're having the event, another good opportunity. So these are just things that could help mitigate some problems.
Add to the,
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so with that, I think that we should,
Can I add something?
sure.
I think we should revisit also lighting on a parking lot there. Because it's not enough lighting, I think, there. I've been there and it's really dark, going to the car. light somewhere in the back, maybe they can bring temporary lights
That is.
to light up.
Yeah, we have
parking
like,
space.
okay. So I think to outline sort of the planning board's next steps, we shall call it that. Obviously, we're not accepting public comment at this meeting, but we are gonna have it at our next meeting. So we'd like to take that public comment into consideration in the next meeting and identify the next steps from there. I don't think we have any, I'm not prepared to make a decision. The public still needs to provide,
We need
again,
some additional information.
absolutely.
In terms
So-
of people in cars.
Right, so Gary, a little homework for you, okay? If you can,
Parking,
what's that?
the parking, right?
Yeah, if you can identify sort of how many parked cars that you feel is,
There's probably a formula I can Google for
yep,
that.
I'm sure you can calculate the acreage per. And then how many people you can seat. You know, we have a range, but if you can come up with a better idea, that'd be good.
And how they control,
Say again?
how it's going to be controlled.
No, we're not that far yet. Just getting some information from him yet. And then we are going to look at, the planning board will do some homework, and we will look at other decisions from, for instance, Crested Hen and Arrowwood that have done these same commercial events. And we will see what they have done, what they provided, and then we'll be able to provide that information to you to identify where we're going next. So for today, that's what we're going to talk about with this application. We will have you on for the February regular meeting with public comment, and then we'll identify where we're going to go from there. So if you can provide that information to us, you can submit it to Jasmine and myself via email, and then we'll get it loaded to the folder for the planning board members review. And we will have the next meeting, which is going to be February 12th. So in context, because this is a workshop meeting,
Maybe meantime, you also can consult with sound engineer, not necessarily hiring, but you can ask them what is the ambient noise, how to measure it and where to measure it.
The company that does it for the town,
yeah,
I'll ask Jerry
Mhm.
Davis, he's the code enforcement guy, and I'll ask him if maybe he can give us a call. Maybe Jerry can give him an idea what we're looking for, and maybe he can help me with the first.
Well,
Original-
unfortunately, I'm sorry.
I just don't know about like certain things, how we're gonna, I'm wondering if, you do a car show and it's a static show, and how could that be a noise issue,
I mean,
And that's why I was suggesting each one is gonna be a little bit different.
exactly.
That's why I suggested do it on the day of the show. All right, maybe you do it a couple of days before the show, but 6 of 1 here doesn't know. You do it the
No,
day of the show.
I get it,
and then you
the
do it-
quiet, I understand, I
Yeah,
like the
that's,
quiet.
that's just.
And I want to remind everybody, this is an existing use,
Exactly.
right? Apple Purse was, Apple.
Apple,
Arrow.
Arrowwood.
Arrowwood, right? They, that was a new use, and so we made them jump through hoops.
Right.
As it turns out, they're now supposed to be monitoring it themselves, as was suggested that you do. The other place, Crested Hen, I don't believe we had an engineer do it, they did it themselves, and they did not want to disturb their neighbors, and that's why we said, look, it's gonna be too loud from what you're telling us, they were honest about it. Insulate the inside, which they did, they were able to do that.
Yeah, when you can do it inside a building, that's.
You want to put a dome over, right?
So,
Yeah, $2 million.
as far as how many people are coming in, who's gonna control that, we don't ask anybody else to control it, it's controlled by how many cars can you park.
Right.
And what our permit or our site plan says you can have that. I mean, the site plan, if you say it's 2,000, that's too many.
Right.
In terms of cars, if you average it out, 2.3 people, that's over 4,000 people, that's getting a little bit on the high side.
We
God bless you if
will,
you can get that many people, but we have to come up with,
we'll let him provide that number and we'll go back to it, sure.
and that's what the permit. In my mind.
Can I ask a question? Do we know how many
No.
people
Go
denied? How many people have attended the large events at Arrowwood? And I know those are advanced.
That's not something that's under this purview because
No, I
we
know, but
can't,
just to get it.
I have no idea. Yeah, we don't have that.
Just
We'll let you go out to the next one.
No.
It's okay, Gary, you have, say again,
On their permit, there's a maximum number. of
No, I
people.
have no idea.
we're not looking at that
There's a
application,
parking-
we're going to look about,
There's a parking number there. Yeah, Jerry.
Oh,
knows.
yeah, we're gonna provide that on the next meeting. So you guys have homework, we have homework, and, okay, this is your last one.
Should we condition the commercial event not to be conducted the same week where the racing? Because there will be racing
No.
one day, commercial event.
Can't do that.
Can we do it?
This does not dictate when he can do it. It gives him the availability of how many he can,
You can dictate the hours that's in the code. You can-
and how many.
And how many, and that's it.
Okay, you have homework, we have homework. We'll see you on February 12th, 6:30, right here, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Gary. Okay, so now we're going to, yes, we're gonna take a quick break and we will, reconvene in 5 minutes and we will go back to the secret tree.